Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the Smart Restart Virtual Parent Conference 2020. This is day 3 of the conference. I am Dr. Sarah Johnson with the Dallas ISD Family and Community Engagement Office, and I will be your mistress of ceremony today. Now I'd like to briefly review a few helpful items and tips that will prepare you for this evening's sessions. First, you might want pen and paper handy to jot down important information. Also, it's nice to have your cell phone nearby just in case you would rather snap a picture of information being shared or to scan any QR codes that are shared. Now, just in case you are new to using QR codes, it is fairly simple to do. First, you would open your camera app on your phone, point it directly at the QR code. Now, some phones will automatically trigger the code's action. And other phones, you may have to tap it to trigger it. And others, you will need to press and hold the home button. Now, speaking of QR codes, I want to be certain that everyone has the Smart Restart QR code. If you cannot scan the QR code, you can access the website by visiting, again, dallasisd.org/smartrestartparents. This website is very important because this is where you will be able to register for week 2 of our conference, watch past videos from this week of the conference, and access any resources like handouts or even the presentation slides for the sessions. So I encourage everyone to write down this website or take a moment and scan the QR code. Okay, let's continue. If you weren't able to write it down or scan your QR code, no worries. I'll share that information with you again throughout the evening. Okay, let's look at our all-star lineup for today's Smart Restart sessions. We will begin the evening with best practices, communicating with your child's teacher, followed by motivating my child to learn at home at 4 p.m. And we will conclude this evening with home-to-home visits, which will begin promptly at 5 p.m. Our first session of the evening is best practices, communicating with your child's teacher. Presenting this session today is Mr. Alrich Smith. Now, Mr. Smith requested we share the following biography with you before he begins.
No, you don't have to do that.
Mr. Smith was born in 1965 AD, back when there was no internet, cellular devices, or even microwave popcorn.
Stop.
Despite these limitations, he thrived as a child, learning English at the young age of 1. In his early years, big wheel riding came easy to him. As an older child, he had 2 dogs, Smokey and Conrad. Later in life, he was employed by Dallas ISD as a family and community engagement coach, where he is currently presenting this presentation as a presenter. So at this time, if you help me welcome Mr. Smith, and I'll turn it over to him at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Did not know you were going to use that, but we're going to roll with it. And as she said, again, my name is Alrich Smith. I'm one of the family engagement coaches with the Family and Community Engagement Office. And I want to start out by saying, at Dallas ISD, we believe in the power of relationships. They drive everything that we hope to accomplish with our students and with our families. We want to help parents and schools develop those academic partnerships. And we know that through building a foundation of trust and keeping ongoing communication going, we know that our students will experience a successful 2020-2021 school year, despite all of the unknowns, despite the pandemic. We know now that engagement with our schools and families, parents, is extremely important. Now, have we perfected that as a district? Not by a long shot, but I'm telling you now that building trusted relationships is something that each school campus is striving for daily this year. So we can move to our next slide, and we'll talk about what we'll learn today. And basically, we'll just kind of discuss what are the best methods that parents can employ when it comes to keeping in touch with their child's teacher. One will be, we'll define what is two-way communication, the benefits of two-way communication when it comes to our students, when it comes to our parents and families. We'll look at a few applications and platforms that open the door for two-way and ongoing communication. And then we'll wrap up with a couple of do's and don'ts when it comes to keeping parent and teacher communication lines open. Let's talk about staying in touch. And I want to take a quick poll, a quick poll regarding staying in touch. We're talking pre-pandemic now. In the past, here are two questions. They should pop up on your screen in just a second. But two questions. What's the most effective way that you've communicated or contacted your child's teacher? What's the most effective way that you've been able to contact or communicate with your child's teacher? Is it by text? Is it by email? Is it by telephone? Was it face-to-face? Which one was the most effective in you being able to communicate with your child's teacher? Second question, okay, here it is on your screen. And I'll go to that first question again. In the past, pre-pandemic, how have you communicated with your child's teacher? Which one was the most effective? Phone, email, face-to-face, text, other? And then our second question, in the past, again, pre-pandemic, how has your child's teacher communicated with you? What was the most effective way for your child's teacher to communicate with you? Now, the polls will probably close in about 30 seconds, so we're going to get as many answers as we can, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. But I'll tell you, for me, my son was a middle schooler last year, and email was the most effective way for me and my wife to communicate with my son's teachers. And email actually opened the door to text messages and phone calls, but they always responded and replied to any question or comment or observation that I had via email. So for me, it was email. And the best way for them to contact me was usually email or text, but usually it was through email. So we'll wait a few more moments for those polls to come up. If you're like me, your child may be going to a new school, a new grade, so there's
Help me to leave it.
text that you're going to have to bake. You're going to have to find out if you have an elementary school teacher, you'll probably have one or two teachers you'll have to contact and find out what's the best way to contact them and let them know what's the best way to contact you. But if you have kids elementary and secondary age, then of course you got your work cut out for you. But it's extremely important that we open those doors to communicating with our child's teacher, because there's too much at stake, number one, and we can't do anything to slip through the cracks. And so we want to make sure that we do as much as possible to find out who that teacher is and what the best way to communicate with them. And so, again, I've called son's school and haven't had a response in terms of teachers, but I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep on until I find out who they are and what those contact numbers or what that contact information is. And then, of course, at some point, they'll open that door. And then we'll have our two-way communication going. All right? So I guess we're still waiting for the links. I'm sorry, the issue.
Yes, 1 second.
And just as a side note to the parents, When you contact your child's teacher, please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure they have your most updated work phone number, personal phone number, email address, because when we change phone providers or phone numbers or email addresses, please make the school one of the top priorities to get that information to, because they need that information just in case of an emergency. And again, with all the unknown, you don't want the school to be unable to contact you. So that's just a side note with regards to making sure they have your updated contact information.
Okay, Mr. Smith, we are back in business. Sorry about that.
All right, very good.
Would you like to see the poll results?
Yes, please. All right, so let's look at question number 1. In the past, pre-pandemic, how have you communicated with your child's teacher? 31% said phone, 55% email, 52% face, 56% text, and 16% other. So it looks like text was a huge avenue for parents to communicate with their child's teacher. That is excellent. Okay, good. Number 2, if you could scroll down, if I can scroll down, I think you have to scroll down. But from what I can see, the responses for question number 2, how has your child's teacher been able to communicate with you? 32% said phone, 56% said email, and let's see if I can scroll down to find. Okay, 47% face-to-face, 51% text, and 21% other. So it looks like email, face-to-face, and text, a little bit of phone were the methods employed to open that door and keep that ongoing communication going with our teachers and with our families. So remember, this year, find out what's the best way to communicate with my child's teacher. Will it be through an app? Will it be through the phone? Will it be, when I say phone, I mean phone call or text? Or will it be email? So find out. And by all means, let them know what's the best time to contact you, if you're more available through email, or if you're available through text. Let them know. Teachers enjoy and welcome the engagement of the parents of their students. All right, we can go to the next slide. What is two-way communication? Now, in a nutshell, in its most technical definition, it's when someone sends a message and they transmit that message to another person who obviously is the receiver, and that receiver submits a response to let the sender know that they have received their message. That's two-way communication in a nutshell. However, when it comes to teachers and parents and two-way communication, or even ongoing communication, it's a little bit more in depth. And so I'll explain it to you like this. Let's say a teacher is opening that door of communication with a family. They may do something to the effect of sending an email, a text, maybe a Zoom meeting to say, good evening, Ms. Johnson. Joseph is in my class. I'm excited to have him in my class. And I just want to know in a few minutes a little bit more about Joseph. What are his strengths and weaknesses? You know, what does he want to be when he grows up? Okay. And so what that does, it automatically gives that parent an opportunity to talk about their favorite subject, their child, right? And so they can tell you everything that they want you to know about their child. And so now there's discourse going back and forth. Now you start to see what we call the development or the initiation of an academic partnership. Connections are being made, okay? So let's look at it from a parent standpoint. And this is something I'm gonna tell you that you already know. you find a way to initiate a conversation with your child's teacher and say, hello, I'm Miss So-and-so, and I just want to let you know that I'm the parent of, and I wanted to make sure you personally had my contact information. Here's my phone number. Here's my email address. And if ever you need to call me, please, ma'am, please, sir, do so. And then you can offer this. Whatever I can do to support your instruction or learning in the classroom at home, please let me know. Teachers welcome engagement from their students' parents. And that's a great way to begin to open that door so two-way communication can begin, and then it can go on to ongoing communication, okay? So let's look at our next slide. Now, how does two-way communication benefit students? And one thing I want to say as we kind of move through the presentation, two-way communication should lead to or birth ongoing communication. Two-way communication should lead to ongoing communication because research has shown us that students whose parents and their teachers communicate on a regular basis, they're more likely to have positive feelings about school. And that's important. When teachers and parents communicate regularly, that child's attitude, they may not say it, but their attitude towards school is usually more positive than it would be if there was no communication, because there's no accountability, okay? They experience positive feelings about school. They participate in class. They're more comfortable in participating in class, okay? They complete homework assignments, higher grades, and then here's a big one for teachers. They're less likely to misbehave in class. Again, there's that accountability to the teacher because the parent and the teacher have started forging a relationship, an academic partnership, if you will. So it's important to know that that your communication with your child's teacher is beneficial to your student, to their student, okay? We can go to the next slide. And I'll say this, it doesn't happen overnight. Just because you do it once, just because you have one parent conference or a conversation or email, it doesn't work like magic. This is something that you have to be in for the long haul. This is something that you do over and over and over again. It doesn't matter if they're in elementary school, middle school, or high school. Teachers welcome your engagement. So let's talk a few minutes about how two-way communication benefits families. Now, again, that dialogue that goes back and forth regarding you and your child's teacher as you talk about your child's strengths and weaknesses and their learning habits, both of you get a better understanding of those things. You understand that your child has strengths in this area, and these are areas that they need to improve in. And the teacher understands your child's learning style. Okay, some students are better learners hands-on, kinesthetic. Some students learn better just by the lecture style. Then you have those students that are visual, they have to see it. And so communicating with your child's teacher, again, that dialogue going back and forth helps you understand that. And it creates a strategy, and it creates avenues to where that child can succeed, not only in the classroom, because eventually we'll go back to the classroom, but that child will succeed even in the virtual learning environment, because the whole learning style may change because it's virtual. Okay, so we have to pay attention to that, and we have to continue to communicate that back and forth to our child's teachers. And then lastly, you want to make sure that your child's learning style is appreciated, and that the teachers develop an approach to teaching and learning that helps and works for your child. Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, on this slide, I just want you to look at a few of the applications and platforms that are out there for us to use when it comes to talking with and receiving information from our teachers and our schools. Of course, we have Power School and Parent Portal. We talked about that yesterday. Of course, there's email, phone, text. Now, again, I have to emphasize this. Please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure that the school has your updated contact information, okay? Then again, I saw yesterday that there are new apps out there, Clever and Seesaw. Again, they help parents engage with the teachers and help the teachers engage with the parents. Again, there's more bolstering of that academic partnership. Of course, we have Remind 101 and Class Dojo as well. So you may want to contact your teacher and see which ones are being used and how to download all that stuff. And you'll make sure you'll be an expert so that teachers can depend on you keeping that door of communication open. All right, next slide. Let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts. Actually, I'm starting out with the don'ts. And so we want to make sure we keep those communication lines open with our teachers and with our schools. So don't feel like you're being a pest or a nuisance when you need to talk to your child's teacher about something. Again, they welcome your input and you can help them in their class. As a matter of fact, you can help them become a better teacher as you communicate with them about your child. So again, that's what a good parent-teacher communication, that's what it's all about, when we're able to approach each other without fear, without suspicion, anything like that. And so it helps us be advocates for our child. So do be an advocate for your child. You know, just because your child spends a lot of time at the school, you're still the expert on your child. You still shape and mold their attitudes towards learning, and that's being an advocate for your child. I want to kind of stop down and put in a plug for our next session. You'll learn a lot about advocating for your child with our 4 o'clock session with Ms. Kimberly Ronald. She's going to be talking about motivating your child to learn. So she'll talk about those 5 roles, and one of those roles is advocating for your child. So you do not want to miss our 4 o'clock session, as well as you don't want to miss our 5 o'clock session either. So let's keep going to our next session. Next slide, I'm sorry. Don't make an effort to introduce. Okay, we got a typo there. Don't hesitate to request a meeting. Go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide. Don't hesitate to request a meeting if you see an issue come up. Don't hesitate at all. You want to be proactive. You want to, as they say, nip things in the bud. So if you see issues coming up with your child, or if there's issue with technology, any of that, request a meeting, request a conversation with your child. And the best and most respectful and polite way to do that is ask the teacher if you could have a few moments to talk about X, Y, and Z. That way, she'll know, you know, it'll be a short conversation. She wants to talk about this. So any materials that she needs to get ready, she'll have it, and you guys can have a productive conversation. So you want to request meetings with your team, but you want to make sure that you're respectful of their time, because again, they have a lot of classes and a lot of students, and so you want to be as productive and as mindful as possible of their time, and vice versa. Okay, and let me add this one. Don't feel as though you're being you have an issue when it comes to get in touch with your child's teacher. Don't wait till there's a problem. Now, just like I just said, don't hesitate to request a meeting, but don't wait too late till the problem has, become full blown and it's almost out of control. You want to, again, nip things in the bud and be as proactive as you can. And that starts with that first initial meeting, telling them who you are, who your child is, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and how can I support what you're doing in the classroom. All right, you can go to the next slide. Now, kind of as we wrap up, I think I'm running out of time, and I want to make sure we have enough time for our questions and answers. Effective communication should equal ongoing communication. And so the things that we've shared, if you can employ those things, it will open up the door for an opportunity for you and that teacher to create that academic partnership. And with that academic partnership, that in turn should lead to a rewarding academic experience for your child, your children. And so again, you want to be proactive. You want to make sure that those doors are open so that your child can have a great school year, and that despite the pandemic, despite the uncertainties, they'll get out of this year and they'll continue to strive and thrive. So that's all I have as far as this presentation is concerned. If there are questions, I'll turn it over to Dr. Johnson, and we'll field those and see what people have to say.
Okay, it is now time for our Q&A session with Mr. Smith. I will ask him a few of the top questions that were asked during the presentation. Are you ready to begin, Mr. Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Smith, the problem with communication is the illusion that it has been received. How do parents circumvent or prevent that from happening?
Say that one more time.
It says the problem with communication is the illusion that it has been received. So I guess they're talking about miscommunication. And how can parents, try to circumvent that and prevent that from happening?
Follow up, follow up, follow up. Never assume anything. If you don't think your message has been communicated correctly or understood correctly, follow up. If it's in print, then you want to make sure that you're clear in your communication. If you haven't received a response, you always want to follow up, because that way you can get the answers that you need. Again, like one of my first do's and don'ts was, don't feel like you're a nuisance. Follow up, follow up, follow up. It's too much to lose. It's too much that can slip through the cracks.
Okay, that's good. Okay, what should parents do if they feel teachers only communicate when something negative occurs?
Good question. Our district is working on our teachers being more proactive in their communications to talk to parents when things are not going bad, but things are going well. And so for a parent, what you can do is stay in constant communication. Don't wait for the teacher to tell you there's something wrong. The more you're in touch with them, the more that those doors are open, you can head off things before they get to be a problem, and you won't have to worry about getting caught off guard, because you've been talking and communicating the whole time. Even if it's notes, check-ins, follow-ups, that's the way to keep from getting blindsided with negative things. You're initiating those conversations to kind of check and see how your child is doing.
What do parents do when they reach out to teachers and they do not respond?
Kind of like the first question, follow up, follow up, follow up, check in. And even if that's a problem, then there are channels to get your issue resolved. If you can't get it resolved at the teacher level, at the campus level, there are other channels, and you'll find out that information with the parent handbooks, the student handbooks. So I would just say, if you open up that door positively with your with your child's teacher, then they're more apt to respond to your inquiries and questions in a timely basis.
Who should parents go to after they have reached out to a teacher and with a concern, and that concern hasn't been addressed? Who should the parents go to next, and how should they go about contacting that person, that next go-to?
Okay, I would recommend, and by all means, I'm not the expert on this, but I would recommend.
You're the expert on this. To the contrary.
I'm not the only expert. I'll put it that way. I would say put your questions in print. That way, if a teacher by chance overlooked your question, your observation, you can say, I sent it on this day at this time. Check back in your emails, check back in your texts or whatever, and that way they can recall that information. Now, if it's an issue of an egregious problem, then I would still follow up with that teacher and try to get it resolved with that classroom teacher first before talking to the assistant principal or the principal, or even calling parent services to make a complaint or whatever. But I would try to resolve it in that manner first. Put it in print, follow up with that teacher as much as you can until you get the answer you want. Then, if you have to, you take those other methods.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions on ways parents can communicate if there are obstacles in the relationship between the teacher and the parent?
Okay.
Or even with the student and the teacher?
That's a great question. And my go-to response is, again, I'm going to assume, I told you guys not to assume, but just let me assume right quick. I'm going to assume everyone has a new teacher, so there's a clean slate. And so, again, if you want to start a relationship on a positive note, introduce yourself, show yourself as a support to that teacher and to that classroom, as an advocate for your child, and you should be able to kind of forge a relationship that won't go sour on you. Now, on the other hand, again, like I said in the presentation, we shape our child's attitudes towards teaching and learning, their behavior in the classroom. So we have a responsibility there to make sure that's happening. And then when issues come up, we can work it out as a team rather than me against the school or me against the teacher, or there's division there. If we started out on a good note, then we should be able to forge something where we can work out issues together.
Okay. Well, Mr. Smith, would you like to add anything else before we conclude?
No, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you to everyone, all 312 of you that stayed on to hear this presentation. I really hope you guys have a great year. Please, ma'am, please, sir, employ the things that you learn through these conferences. They are the things that work. And when they work, everybody, including the teachers, the students, and the staff, will have a successful school year, despite the pandemic, despite the uncertainty. So
I have one more question.
My last exhortation.
All right, one little question for you. You mentioned past several times when speaking. Will you clarify for our audience what the past department in Dallas, what that means in Dallas ISD?
Pass?
Parent advocacy.
Oh, that's the department that will hear your complaint, as it were, or your issue, and they will seek to help you resolve it. And they'll take you through the right channels to make sure that you're satisfied with the issue and that it's been resolved, everyone's satisfaction for the best intentions of the student. So that's the pass.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our first session of the evening. I'd like to thank Mr. Alrich Smith for presenting and sharing his expertise with us this evening. Thanks, Alrich.